looking with like almost two humps there, or like a flat and then an up. I don't think I'd get away with it, but Hamish seems to.
Yeah. But see, that's what worked for us, right? And you got to be. This is the whole disclosure. It's like that there worked for the combination of Eric and Hamish. I don't think it would work like in an 8. I'm not like I don't think so. In a 4, probably not. It's all to do with the forces and the way that the pair's moving, because the pair was always going to do this in the water, right? It's always going to go side to side. It's very difficult to have it go very, very straight. But that was what we were trying to do, was make it go as straight as possible. But we'd always have this little bit of a flick at the start where Hamish would take it and then I'd get back on. And that's where those two lines start intersecting back again. So when the majority of the maximum force that we're applying is very straight, rather than it still coming off a sideways shift because the bow person's like got it before the stroke person. You know what I mean? So you're talking, and this is why, like when you start, and we're all fucking geeks on rowing, when you start really getting down into the nitty gritty of it, you know, you're going, well, if I can make the boat go this much further per stroke because we've got less sideways shift on it, add that up 250 times. How many lengths is that? It's 2 lengths, maybe 3. Do you know what I mean? So you're like going, well, that's a lot of distance. And that's really what you're trying to do, is find out how you just make the boat more efficient than somebody else. It's like we had no way near as much power as other people, right? There's no shot. Because we just didn't spend our time in the weights room. We were always out on the water. And so we had to find it in other ways, which was trying to find the efficiencies. And I think that a lot of people, you can start looking back to, you know, I guess the generation of the Danish lightweight 4, you know, in that early 2000s right through to like 2012, phenomenal, right? And for a period, I think 99, did they break the men, like the open world record? You know, how do you get a lightweight 4 that can fucking go under 550? It's crazy, right? 546 or whatever the shit it is at the moment. And you're just going, it doesn't make sense, right? Because you got 4 guys at 70 kilograms average or whatever, and they're beating 4 guys which are probably 95 kilograms average. How does that work out? And all they're doing is they're more efficient. It's as simple as that. You know, how does a lightweight double go so fast? You know, they're only, 4 seconds off a heavyweight double. What do? Like 6:03 to 5:59, 4 seconds? Not that far, right? It's fuck all. And yet, how do they go? They're lacking size. They're lacking strength, all of the things that you think should be part of what you need to be a good rower. What is it? It's efficiency. It's their ability not to let the boat slow down, and that's why they go so fast.
So, it makes complete sense. So do you think that's one of the reasons you're able to be so dominant, is that you came out of the weights room and more in the water?
Yes, I do think that was a big part of it. Like, the reason that we stopped doing weights was in after 2010. Great race, that one. After 2010, we came back into the gym ready to start like the new year, which for us was obviously like started December. And Dick just turned up one day while we're in the, like, just before we're about to start weights, and he goes, right, we're not going to do weights anymore. We're going to use those sessions out on the water because we'll get faster by being fitter than we will by being stronger. I was like, okay. And so we ended up doing a lot more like power strokes on the water, you know, bungee, strap a fucking hose pipe around your boat, and row away for 20K, probably 15 of that with a bungee on. It was hard. It was very, very hard. And then doing pieces with it on. So you're building your resistance in terms of your strength that you're needed for the rowing and the motion of the rowing stroke, which is what you're trying to achieve. Ain't no shoulder press, ain't no fucking bench press, bicep curls, none of that shit, whatever. It's all in the motion of the rowing stroke. And to be fair, 2011, I reckon we were going very, very fast. You know, we turned up, gave everyone a hiding in Lucerne. When we were in Hamburg, we absolutely lit it on fire. What did we win by, like 19 seconds or some stupid thing? And then we went to World Champs, and yeah, British came right back. You know, they were a length behind us, and we wasn't much tailwind conditions, and we were 0.3 or some whatever off the world record. You know, there was no Seville 2002 tailwind in that race. and yet both of us, we're 6:14s, they're 6:16 or whatever. And it's like, it was fast. It was very, very fast. And I think a lot of that did come down to the fact that we didn't need to do weights. Like I was 29. Hamish is like 25, 26. Like, how much more muscle growth are you going to get? What we used to start like thinking about, especially like before that, is that you take your break from your time off, right? World Champs is finished, break time, everyone's gone away for the holidays, off season. And then you spend all your time getting back to the same fitness that you were fucking 12 months beforehand. All right. And you spend all that time doing it. And like, how much time do you get, and what's the game, and what's the tangible, I guess, result from that gain? Like, can you say that made you go 2 seconds quicker? But how much time did you put into it? You know, could you have been better off working on your technique and getting 2 seconds quicker? I don't know, right? And this is the thing. I do think in a lot of different events, yes, you do need that strength and you do need that power. But can you not build that power and strength in a rowing style? Like, is sitting there doing leg press and squats and that really going to make you that much more explosive? Yes, maybe at the start of the race. Yes, maybe at the finish of the race. What does it do to you in the middle of the race? Don't know. And this is what you came back to right at the start when we were talking about it, is like, where are you trying to win a race, right? And I sat down with Emma Twigg last year when she was in her training program, and had her and Mike around here, and she was just shit scared of getting fourth again. And I said to her, I was like, where are you going to win the race? Are you going to win it in the first 500, the second, the third, or are you going to be sprinting to the line? Because at the end of the day, you've got to make a decision in terms of your whole program and the way that it works. Where are you going to win the race? And so for Hamish and we're winning the race in the third 500. That was our goal. We were like, we are winning every single race in the third 500. We're going to go faster than anybody else. How do we do that? It's high intensity for quite a long period of time, which is quite not, I wouldn't say the most enjoyable training at all, but it paid off. And that's why nobody had anywhere near the speed that we had in the third 500, because we spent all our time out on the water, on the erg, working on the third 500 pace, the no fade, trying to get clarity while you're under the pump, while you're in fatigue, while your energy levels are diving, and you've got to be able to try and maintain some sort of focus to be able to not let that slow down. And so that's really what we did. Training became very, very brutal. Sometimes very questionable on the why. But then when you put it into practice, you were like, yep, this is it. And that's really where you have to figure out, in terms of what you're trying to do, where are you going to win the race? And I think, yes, the race is long. Yes, there's a lot, there's lots of time, but it is really trying to figure out where that can be done. And that's one thing I think as crews, people need to sit down and say, what are we good at? Where can we do this? And like, if you're like, good, we're great sprinters. Okay, you can sprint out of the blocks, be prepared to everybody to pass you through the middle. As long as they don't get too far behind you, wind the shit out of it, right? And that was what we were like when we were in the men's 4 back in 2006 and 7. We didn't have the fitness. We didn't have the technique through the middle. Fuck, we had a sprint on us. Holy shit, could we wind the hell out of that boat? We could get it down to low 120s in the final 500 of a race. We did a 125 or whatever it was in the last 500 to win in Munich, in 2007. But that was just the way that we had that philosophy. It was like, we don't have the fitness. We don't probably have a great technique, but shit, we've got some power when it matters. And that's how we won the race. And you see that with a lot of different crews out on the water now, especially at the world level. Like, there's some people that can absolutely ream it in the first 5. You got other people who are very good through the middle. And then you've got some absolute blinders as sprinters. And it's just like, where do you fit into that equation? And then, is that the way you want to work it? Is this the way that you're going to approach all your training or your racing, or your mental work is around that? And that was us, third 500.
That's brilliant philosophy to have. It's been absolutely fascinating talking to you about your philosophy. I don't want to take up all of your...
No, you keep going, pal. Keep going till the Zoom meeting runs out. Don't worry about it.
Oh, amazing. I've got tons more to ask.
Go.
So, do you have any? It seems like you're someone who's well, certainly after you got in the pair, you've just had win after win after win. Do you have any regrets from your rowing career? Are there any like haunting moments that came back and like spurred you on to keep going?
Well, see, I wouldn't say I nearly quit, but like 2006, we had a real shitter at the World Champs. We got a medal at the World Cup, and then we were there, and then we had a dead heat, and all this shit went on, and I was like, oh man, this sucks. I wasn't ready to quit, but then, you know, we won 07, 08, we came in. We weren't rowing very well. We had some injuries, bits and pieces, and obviously after that, it's just disappointing. I guess that's probably the word. Is we're disappointed we couldn't do what we did like 12 months prior. But then, of course, just taking a break, coming back into it, and doing it. But if we go back to that time, probably the only I don't think there's any regrets, because like we did everything and we learnt. I look at it and I'm like, you know, if you could go back and say anything, I would have gone and bought a lottery ticket knowing the numbers. You know, I never rode my life. Who cares? I'd have been rich. But when we were training in the 4, Hamish and I were very quick, right? You know how there's just combinations and they just work. We worked every time we jumped in a pair. And when we were in the 4 and we split up between Hamish and I, Carl and James, and when it was me and James and Carl and Hamish, we were basically the same speed. But when Hamish and I were in the pair, country mile. So we hardly ever got to race in it, because as a 4, you're like, why have one pair that's like hundreds of meters in front of the other? You need them to be level all the time to have competitive competition in terms of training. But then one time we got to race against George and Nathan, who ended up winning the bronze in Beijing, and I can show you the result. We did a 6:18 on Carapero at a club regatta. Yeah, and we won by 10 seconds over them, and we were just like, shit, okay. And of course, even everybody was like side eyes going, shit, did we just see that? Did that just happen? Like, they were silver medalists from the year before, and they were pretty quick, and yet we just absolutely gave them a hiding. And so of course we're sitting there, but nothing in our right minds even crossed to say, let's ditch the 4, let's go in the pair for Beijing. Because I think if we'd gone in the pair in Beijing, I think we would have been right up with the Canadians and with Drew and Duncan. I think we would have been right there. Would we have been in front of them? I don't think we had the maturity, but we would have definitely been fighting we would have got a medal. Easily got a medal. I don't know if we would have like topped the spot, but it's always that question is like, what if we had? So I don't have the regrets. I've just got the what ifs. But no, I guess that's probably the only one in terms of like what I would have done different. Probably would have liked to have tried to get our philosophies out on top of our coach a little bit earlier. It took us a while to get him to come to terms with what we were trying to achieve and what we were trying to feel, just because he was an old bugger that just was stubborn old prick and just wouldn't, that's not how we row. That's not how everyone rows. This is how you do it. And we're like, no, we want more patience. And he's like, get off the back quick and then slow down into the front. And we're like, it doesn't work. We're feeling it. We know what's working. Shut up. You know, so there was a little bit of conflict and rift between like what we were doing. But at the same time, Dick, in terms of training, he made us like probably the 2 fittest athletes on the earth. And so it was just really like living through his program and more surviving it than anything else. But I would have loved to have been in that 8 in Tokyo. And we'd had some good conversations about me being part of the program and stuff like that. But I was already tapped out. I was like, I've done my job. I drinking beers, doing other bits and pieces. Yeah, and I just didn't have I just couldn't bring my head around, because I think what people misinterpret is that we don't just train every day. You know how like you asked that question about just training or the 80% and all this sort of stuff. Our training was about fucking grinding ourselves into the ground every day as hard as we can, and then trying to bounce back in the afternoon, and then trying to bounce back the next day, and then the next day and the next day. So training is about how do you manage being absolutely exhausted, under fatigue, under mental stress, when it's going good or it's going bad, which majority of the time it's bad because your technique's like terrible, because you're tired, you can't focus, everything about it. And so you're living in this just eternal pit of like doubt and of fatigue and everything else. And that's what you have to go to be good. I think people probably don't push themselves. They go, oh, I'm very tired, I need to have a break. And you're like, yeah, but could you just do a little bit more? And I think that's lost on some people, because people, and you'll see it all the time, they'll turn up to train, they go, oh, I'm real sore from weights, I think I just need to have a light session today. And you're like, yeah, but what if you didn't have a light session? What if you did go out there and pump it? Like, is that going to, are you going to keep doing this to your ceiling and just keep pushing it up and up and up? And I think that's what we learnt being with Dick, was that it was just brutal. And like, you were just sitting there going, I don't think I can do this. I'm almost ready to be like, if someone just offered me something to get out of the boat and leave, you'd be like, give it to me, you know, like, I'm out of here because this shit sucks. And that was it, right? It was, so much of it was thoroughly unenjoyable. But then when it came time to get on the racetrack or to do some testing, and you had a bit of a rest up for it, and your time showed that you were going very, very fast, then all of that time prior to it is worthwhile, you know.
Yeah.
And I sit there and I look at that Olympic gold medal, and I'm like, yeah, great, won the Olympic gold medal. And none of those horrific sessions that we ever did even are a bleep on the radar. They're just like, they're gone. But at the time, you could like going, oh, it makes me feel ill, like thinking about what we just did last week or what we're about to do tomorrow. You know, you just lose that emotion for those types of sessions. And you just look at it in terms of like where you're at right now. And that was the way.
That's it's nice to know that even at the top levels, you have those moments where you feel like
all the time,
just constant.
Yeah, it is, but that's the thing, right? It's like, if you're not the one, there's a couple of, like, Dick, for his own right, okay, in terms of a coach, was terrible. His communication was horrific. He was more of a trainer than he was anything, but he's sitting there like going, all he was trying to do, and like you see it in hindsight, and now you look back on it, oh, okay, that's what he was doing it for. But he couldn't articulate. He couldn't say, hey guys, I'm trying to get the best out of you. I'm trying to push you to your limit so that you can find out how good you can be. If he had said that and verbalized that, I'd be like, fuck, let me at it. You give me any session, and I'm going to absolutely try and do the best I can. But all he was doing, because he didn't have that communication, unless we figured that out very quickly and very early on by talking to people and by just understanding it. But he was basically like, if your athletes aren't breaking down, how do you know how hard you can push yourself? How hard do you know you're working? You know what I mean? So and that was it. And so what he was doing was he was just pushing and pushing and pushing. And then someone might get an injury, and so then that would be our load. But all of a sudden you're like, fuck, we just did 280 Ks this week. And you'll be like, okay, is that going to become the norm? Or, oh yeah, oh shit, yeah, don't get it wrong. It was pushing ourselves to absolute point. And then out of the blue might be like, I'll see you back here on Wednesday. And we'd be like, oh, holy shit. But of course, none of that was ever communicated. It was just how it was. And then they'd be like, oh, I want, and so that was the hard part, is not having the program, not having it in front of us to say, this is what we're doing week on, week on. We didn't even know before we get on the water what the hell we were doing every day. We had a trend, but like, it wasn't like he gave you a program and said, right, we're going to row Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday morning, we're going to do this, we're going to do power strokes here, we're going to do pieces on this, we're going to do this and this and this. We knew there were pieces this day and this day. We knew there were power strokes on Tuesday, Friday, but that was about it. Every other bit in between was like, are we doing 20K today? Are we doing 30K? Are we going to do intervals? Are we going to do pieces? Are we going to do this? We're going to do that. We'd have no idea until you just got on the water. And so it was like, you've got to be prepared. And it was sort of that, like, whether or not, and never, because you never speak to the guy because he's just such an introvert, probably basically bipolar. You never asked him and said, did you do that to keep us on our toes, so that if we got into a situation where shit was thrown at us that it was weird, we reacted and got on with the job? Never verbalized it, but then maybe in his own way he was just doing that. But we just never knew, because it wasn't like he would tell you that was what was happening, which is why, as him as a coach, it was fascinating just watching him, because he was just such a weirdo. But you talk about it and you listen to people, you know, the Mike Spracklins, even the Jurgens, their quirkiness and the way that they work is just so different. but they manage somehow to get the best out of the best athletes, right? They don't get the best out of everybody. They get the best out of the people that start to understand what they're wanting to do. And that was what we understood with Dick. So, you know, I think if I hadn't understood in myself what I was trying to do and the way that he was going to be able to make that happen for me, we probably never would have been as good as we were, because we would have just been like, I just want to survive the week, so I'm just going to do enough to do it. You know, like, rather than going, okay, I can see you. Are you trying to break me? You're not going to break me. You know, and that was probably where your attitude and stuff comes in. It's like, whatever's put in front of you, just try and do it to the best of your ability. You blow up, who gives a shit, right? Do it again tomorrow. Try and do it. You blow up again, who cares? And again and again. And I think that's the biggest key to it, is just trying and getting to where you can. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what you're doing, you are going to get better. Okay. It just what so happens that to get better, the time for this little increment, the times here, but can't even put on screen, to get that much better. And that's what I think a lot of people slightly miss, is that they get to a point and they're like, I'm pretty good, but to get very good is exponentially more difficult than what you're currently doing.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So was it with Dick that you did the 3 2Ks that were all sub 6? Famous erg.
4 2Ks.
Four.
Yeah, no, that was that. So what happened was, after our first cycle, which was working up to London, we got Noel Donaldson came as our coach. And we had a physiologist, a guy called Daniel Plews, and Dan was amazing, because we basically changed our philosophy, and I'm not sure if you know, like, I think it was in our book and bits and pieces, but after London, we were only rowing once a day on the water. Okay, so we went from doing this 12 to 14 sessions on the water a week to doing 6. And of course, everybody's just like, you can't do that. You can't just row 6 times a week at elite level and win. And we were like, right, this is a challenge. And but what it did is it gave us freedom and flexibility and family life. You know, like Hamish was basically engaged to his partner, and so, you know, he's got that on the horizon. I'd had baby with my now ex-wife, and so I'm like, okay, Zach's 1 year old, like, I need time with him. Do I have to take him, pick him up from daycare? You know, like, just what happens if he's sick, or the wife's got to go away for work, or, you know, so we needed flexibility. So we started rowing every day on the water, and then in the afternoons, we were doing physiologically, like, specific sessions, which for me, I was doing 3 to 4 erg sessions a week, 2 to 3 bike rides a week. And you're not just talking, I'll go out for, like, you know, a couple of hours on the bike. It was like 5 minutes at this heart rate, 10 minutes at this, go do some hills, repeat here, do this. And my erg stuff was like, here's some intervals, here's 3 30-minute pyramids, you know, and I want them boom, 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 you know, all of this, take some blood lactate, do all of this. So they're very physiologically specific. Some horrific ones that we did were like max pieces. And then of course, Dan goes, I want you to do 4 6-minute pieces, open rate, you know, and at race pace. And I said, I bet you I can do them under thing. Can I do them at 2K and I'll break 6 minutes every time? And he goes, there's no way you'll break them 6 minutes every time. Ding, ding, ding. Okay, challenge. Here we go. So they were, I can't remember if it was 3 or 4 minutes off in between, or whatever it was either 3 or 4 minutes. And I remember doing the first one and I was like, not bad. And, you know, shit, it's hard. But I knew that, you know, when you talk about the whole 80% and bits and pieces, that, you know, you've got to remember that my PB is like a 5:41. So it's only sort of 20 seconds off, which, well, just a bit under 20 seconds. But when you do the figures, it's 5 splits, right, on a machine. So what's the difference? And I know it's exponential. I know it's out there, you know, but what's the difference between a 145 and a 140 in terms of energy output? It's not huge. Okay, but when you start getting down to your levels, it is. But of course, for me, doing a 130 compared to that, you know, I'm doing a 5K at 131, 132, or whatever the hell it is. Okay, so it's not that far off. But you've got to do 4 of them on repeat, 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's the hard part. So of course, once I'd done 2 of them, I was like, okay, here we go. The third one, I was pretty close to max towards the finish. And then, of course, the last one, I was just like, I'm no shot. Am I not doing this under 6 minutes? And I have to say, I slowed through the middle and I was in the pit of despair and I wound the shit out of it to get it there. So probably wasn't as nice as I would have liked. But of course, when I finished it and I put the menu on in the memory and I was like 4 underneath and I was like, this shit's going to go wild on social media. And it did, right? And it was just like, people were like, nah, no shot. And I'm like, fucking A. And I had to, but the problem is I had to cut out my heart rate because, of course, the heart rate in the end of it was like 195 or some stupid thing. So, of course, people would have, I just wanted to cut that out so that people would be like, oh, fuck, he went and did that. Never mind that I was like at max for like 2 of them. But yeah, but what I'm getting back to it is that the reason that I was able to do that was because of the training that we were doing. And we just became a lot more scientific than we were just outright time on water, because you just have to row on the water. And it became that we would row on the water and do a very, very good job of our focus and our technique. And then we do a lot more fitness stuff off the water. And we pretty much kept that nearly all the way through to Rio. We were doing at least 2 ergs, 2 bikes. We started throwing in 1 or 2 afternoon sessions, but even working into the last couple of years, there'd be maybe 8, 10 maximum rows on the water, and then the rest of it was all just bike and erg specific, timed, split had to be on here, heart rate had to be on here, and it made us go fast. Simple as that.
So following on from you sharing your wisdom, I know a load of junior rowers like to watch my YouTube channel. Do you have any advice for them, for people new to the sport, coming into it, or a few years into their training maybe?
You got to have fun first and foremost, right? And you got to enjoy it and find the enjoyment aspect out of it, because once you start really committing to it, the enjoyment level does wane slightly, because you're just like, because you have to, like, you've got to look at it more of an obsession, which needs to be done very well, rather than an obsession which is funky and cool and fun. And I'm just going rowing today, and yeah, we're going to go to this regatta this weekend. Because once you cross that line of wanting to be quite serious with it, it does just take a lot more of that sort of lust off it, that lust, like the luster of it being fun and great and cool and all this sort of stuff. And then it becomes like serious, like you've got to be critical about your training. You've got to be critical about your technique and your racing and all the other stuff that comes involved with it. So it is really just been like, when do you want to cross that line? And I say it to coaches all the time as well. And I think it's any coaches that are on here, the one thing that's lost on people as well is figuring out, because you get all these people that come into a program, and yes, I know you want to win, because as a coach, you're doing great things, right? But you need to ask your athletes and say, right, I've got 3 boxes. Okay, which one do you want to fall under? Are you here for fun and enjoyment to get on the piss? Cool. This is box number A. Box number B is I really want to have fun. I've got a lot of other things in life that are happening, but I'll try and squeeze this in and do as much as I can and be part of the program. You're in group B. And then in group C over here, you're like, are you going to turn up here every day? This is all you're going to do in the weekends, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, okay, you're in group C. So then what you've got to do is create all of this group that's here and put them into your program, because you might need some of group B in your 8 or whatever, depending on the number of athletes that you've got. And as long as everybody understands that, you can have a great harmonious like team of people, like a squad, because you need people if you're trying to do 8s. If you've only got 3 of you over here, do you row a pair and a single all the time, or are you sucking some people out of here all the time and trying to find a really good group of people? Because these guys are always probably going to be fitter, should be faster, just because they're doing more time. And really that's the situation you've got to get involved in. And I hear it with the coaches trying to get the kids to think, we really need them to be here more often. I'm like, you're killing the enjoyment. Why do you think you got massive drop off after school? Because people just be like, fuck this, I'm out. I did way too much with it. Whereas if they'd been in group A, they're still going to turn up, they're still going to train, they're still going to race. They might slip into group B the year after. Or the people in group B might be like, yeah, I'll flip and flop, but then next year I'm going to be in group C.
Yeah.
But what happens is if you try and force everyone into fucking group C all the time, then half of them just quit, and then you've got no program. and you're always chasing your tail to try and find these people. So as an athlete, figure out where you want to fit in the program, enjoy what you're doing, and then once you really want to click onto it, then really start like doing it properly, training effectively. Okay, effective training is better than just training. It's specific. What do I need to be doing? Do I need to be talking to a trainer, physiologist? Do we need to do a little bit of testing to find out, should I buy a heart rate monitor so when I'm on the water or I'm on the erg, I'm actually training in a better zone? Just bits and pieces like that, once you cross that line, that's where you need to go. But first and foremost, if you're not enjoying it, if you're not loving what you're doing, that's where you've got to question it. So that's really the biggest piece of advice.
I think that's fantastic advice, and seems like something that people can really follow as well. So just a couple of things before we run out of time. Just wanted to give you an opportunity to plug anything you're working on at the moment, or give a shout out to anything. You've got November going on, of course.
Yeah, I know.
I'm trying. It's not quite as good as yours.
Look at this is terrible. I've been going a bit wild for a while. No, I really enjoy giving back to people. My social accounts, I'm always getting questions from people, and I do my best to answer them. I do really enjoy what I'm doing with the Sensei program. I think a lot of people, if you're looking at an erg or you're wanting to get involved, there's some free stuff on there. It's tracking things like, even just go to the YouTube channel, come and sit on some sessions with me. You'll just learn some tips. Because at the end of the day, all I'm trying to do is I guess, just imprint some knowledge on other people, and not even knowledge to an extent. I guess the thought process, right? The philosophies, which I think is a lot. That's what's come out. Is it's like, we tried this and it started working, but we had tried a whole lot of other shit beforehand, and then we just started to figure out things where we were trying to do it easier, because I told you about how hard we've had to do it. And so, of course, if we could make it slightly more manageable or easier, then why is that not a good thing? And so this is where all the philosophies and things started coming. And then we tried every different way under the sun to row. You'd spend months trying something and then going back or flipping and flopping to get to a point where you actually thought things were good. So like, I know things. I want to help people. So especially on the rowing machine, I think there's a great improvement for people to be able to come in and try new things, or just think about things in a different way in terms of like efficiencies and effectiveness, and really work on it, which helps them get better. Because at the end of the day, if I can help people get better, they have fun doing it at the same time, I see absolutely nothing wrong with that, and that's what I'm here to try and do.
Eric, thank you so much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you. Thank you.
No worries, pal. Enjoy.